As the sunlight fades into autumn gloom, the rustling of leaves in the cool, dim air gives proof of the coming season. Overhead, the insidious cackle of witches flying pierce the darkness. Horrid figures of silent phantoms stalk desolate paths and candle-lit hallways. And all manner of things, goblins, banshees, and vampires, hide amongst the growing shadows. Thus begins October. Blackwater Media presents Halloween Horrors. My friend Pedro called me one evening before dinner. He was sobbing as he told me that he and his wife Maria were getting divorced. She'd moved out of the house earlier that day and Pedro was distraught. I called my wife, who was at that time visiting her mother, and she agreed that I should go and stay with Pedro for a few days to help him during this difficult time. So I packed a small suitcase and got right into the car. It was late, and it would take me at least 4 hours to drive from my home in Santa Fe. Pedro was expecting me to arrive around midnight. As I traveled down the dark, wet highway, I kept feeling chills, as if someone or something were watching me. You know how that is. I kept looking in the rearview mirror and glancing into the back seat. No one was there, of course. Don't be ridiculous, I told myself, wishing fervently that I was home in my bed instead of driving on a dark, rainy highway. There was almost no traffic, and I just wanted like hell to reach my destination. I turned off the highway just before I reached the city and started down the side roads that led to Pedro's house. As I approached the small crossroads, I saw a woman step into the street directly in front of my car. I gasped in fright and slammed on my brakes, praying that I would miss her. Of course, the car shuddered to a halt, and I looked frantically around for the woman. And then I saw her right beside my goddamn window looking in at me. And she had the face of a demon. Twisted eyes, glowing red, and short, pointed teeth. And I screamed, "What the fuck?" And she leapt at the window, her clawed hand striking the glass. I put my foot down on that goddamn accelerator and the car leapt forward. For a few terrible moments, she ran alongside the car, keeping up easily and striking at me again and again. Then she fell behind in the rearview mirror, and I saw her growing taller and taller until she was as large as a damn tree. Red light swirled around her like mist, and she pointed after me, her mouth moving, though I could not make out any words. I quickly returned my attention back to the road, afraid of what might happen to me if I ran the goddamn car off the road. Well, I made it to Pedro's house in record time and flung myself out of the car, pounding on his door frantically and looking behind me to see if the demon-faced woman had followed me. And Pedro came running to the door and let me in. "Shut the goddamn door! Shut it!" I cried frantically, brushing past him into the safety of the house. "What's wrong?" he asked, slamming the door shut. He grabbed me by the arm and led me into the living room. I sank onto the couch and started breathing heavily in fear. No, in abject terror. After several minutes, I managed to gasp out the story. Pedro said, "Are you sure you were at the crossroads when you saw her?" And I nodded, puzzled by his question. "It must have been la mala hora," Pedro said, wringing his hands. "What? The bad hour?" I asked. "This is bad, man. Very bad. La mala hora only appears at crossroads when someone is going to die." Now, ordinarily, I would have laughed at such superstition, but the appearance of the demon woman had shaken me. Pedro got me a cup of coffee, brought my luggage in from the car, and told me I should just get some sleep. He was so concerned for me that he didn't once mention the divorce. Anyway, I felt much better the next morning, but I could not shake the feeling of dread that grew within me all day. Neither of us mentioned La Mala Hora, but we were both thinking of her when I told him that I wanted to go home. He insisted on coming with me, and I flatly refused to drive after dark. Shit, I was afraid I would see that demon woman again when I passed the crossroads. So we left the next morning, and we hadn't been home more than 20 minutes when a police car pulled into my driveway. And I knew at once what it meant, and so did Pedro. The officer spoke very gently to me, but nothing could soften the news. My wife had been mugged on the way back home from having dinner last night with her cousin. Her body had not been found until this morning. She'd been shot in the head and was killed instantly.
13 Sergeant 1 Essential.